Hi guys, back in John chapter 1 today. We're looking at verses 15 through 28, and it's like a little exchange between John the Baptist and some religious guys that are coming up to him and asking him a couple questions. So let's just consider it as though, we were the ones being approached, and, we're doing our work in the ministry as we are led by God, and we have these people coming and asking us questions. So let's just keep that in the back of our mind. So in verse 15, we find the priests and Levites coming to ask John the Baptist a couple questions. They were sent by their higher ups, the Pharisees, and so they're higher ups in the religious order, and their questions were primarily who John the Baptist was, and with what authority he was working, and why did they care, right? That's another question underneath the question, but these are the kinds of questions that religious men will always be asking anytime we find someone setting out to do God's will in a non-traditional way. And that's what John was doing. He wasn't following, the order and the structure of the hierarchy of his day. So we got this guy, he's out in the wilderness, he's dressed weird, he's not following the rules, he's eating locusts and honey, and, he's just kind of like a wanderer out there. But what's he doing? They're like, who is this guy? And let's figure it out, because he might be a problem for us. That's what they're thinking. So, and the reason that they cared what John the Baptist was doing is because generally, the reason is because religious men like to have all the authority. They like to have control. They like to have all the attention. And they like to be in a place where they can call the shots. They can kind of control everything that's going on within the religious realm, and what other workers of God can and cannot do and say. They're those guys that, that have that control. So religious men don't usually like wilderness walkers like John the Baptist, because they have no control over that ministry and no access to that following, if there is one. So anyway, the first thing they ask John the Baptist is, who are you? And John answers by saying who he's not. And, it could have been, they may have had some honest motives in asking this. They may have truly thought that maybe he was the Messiah, and that may have been another reason they were coming, because they just genuinely wanted to know if he was someone they should be paying attention to. I mean, we can't discount that. That may be true too. So they say, who are you? And John answers by saying who he's not. He says, I am not the Christ. He replies. So John is like 3 steps ahead of these guys, right? He knows what they came for. He knows they're wondering whether he himself is the Messiah. And, I mean, really, have you ever heard someone ask or answer a question about who they are with who they're actually not? Like, John's giving the utmost deference to Christ by doing this and by answering this way. John thought Christ so much more important than himself, which he was, and he also knows that these men thought that he himself might be the special one, or might be special. He starts here. Jesus is the one you need to look at, not me. And he, and truth be told, I mean, this is the guy who Christ himself said there was no one greater born of women. Like, still though, he only points to Jesus, right? He does not point to himself or anything about himself. So, good answer, right? So the men went on asking if he was the prophet or Elijah, and they insisted that he give an answer, or a straight answer, because he had given an answer. He said, I'm not Jesus, but they wanted a straight answer as to who he really was. And he basically said that he was a mere servant seeking to pave the way for someone else, namely Christ. He just keeps pointing at Jesus. That's all he does. He doesn't talk about himself. He points at Jesus every time they ask him. So in other words, who I am personally, my likes, my dislikes, my affiliations, my abilities, my talents, my family name, associations, all of those things they don't matter much. And I don't need to put them on display, and you don't need to know them because you don't really care about that. If you cared about that, you'd be out asking everybody who they were, and you'd be interested in those people too. But you're not interested in that. So I'm just going to tell you the truth. And the truth is that Jesus is what's important, and Jesus is what I'm about. So none of the other stuff about me matters much. So he's basically saying there's only one thing about my life and my ministry that matters or should matter to any of you, and that's Christ being made known. That's what John the Baptist was about, Christ being made known. And so, that's my goal. He's saying that's the essence of who I am. And if anyone is asking about me, tell them that I'm the one who was sent to make him known. That's my job. That's why I'm out here. That's what I'm doing. That's who I am. So what minister of the gospel would not want to be described that way? I mean, any honest minister of the gospel would want to be described that way, right? Especially to their religious colleagues who are looking to find fault in them, probably. Who's that prophetic-looking pastor over there in the wilderness? Oh, him? That's the one who was sent to make Jesus known. That's what he says about himself. Oh, like that's awesome, right? I would love to be described that way. But why stop there? We don't have to. Who's that mechanic over there, Tim? He's the one who was sent to make Jesus known. Who's that waitress? Who's that college student? Who's that mom? Who's that cook? Who's that athlete? Who's that, wait for it, who's that girl? Oh my, it's a girl. They're the ones that were sent to make Jesus known. Because we are. That's what our life is about, or should be about, if we are his. That is, in essence, who we are and who we should be. Do we look like it? Do we act like it? Do we sound like it? Do we disciple people like it? I'm just saying, because if you bear the name Christian, it is your job to do just what John the Baptist was doing to make Jesus known. Now, he was, of course, baptizing, but he was a voice calling in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord. And that's what we ought to be about. That's what we ought to be doing no matter what our life position is. Right? Right. Okay. So, we know who John wasn't, and we know what he was about. So what next? These religious moles asked John another question. This is John chapter 1, verses 24 and 25. Now they had been sent from the Pharisees. They asked him, "Then why are you baptizing if you are neither the Christ, nor Elijah, nor the prophet?" So we have to see the question underneath the question here again. It is this: by what authority are you baptizing? Because by your own admission, you are not Christ, or Elijah, or the prophet. And, those are the only guys that we would accept as having enough spiritual authority to do such a thing. So who do you think you are, and why should we allow you to do this, right? That's basically, I think that's what they were saying. So, you see, John was doing something that no one else ever did, right? He was operating as an authority outside the accepted authority structure of his day. So John's authority came from God alone, not men, right? Men aren't real comfortable with that. They don't really like that. You follow our rules, you submit under our structures. So the way he answers the "why are you baptizing" question is this. Basically, I came to make Christ known, period. I am not even worthy to touch the shoes that are on his feet. I came that he might be magnified. I came to make way for Jesus Christ. I came to shadow Christ. He is the important one, not me. So tell that to your religious friends, okay? It's great. That's a great answer, right? What do we say when someone asks who we are and what we're doing in the name of God? So first, wait, are we doing things in the name of God? Because we should be if we're his. But people love to point out authority structures and assume that we don't have any if and when we operate from a place where God alone is leading us. We got some friends out here. Whatever. Okay. But the word itself is our authority. If it says preach the gospel, it does. Then we need no religious men's approval or consent before we do so. Our authority comes not from men, but God. So, the Word, who we now know after studying John 1 as Jesus Christ himself, the Word says teach, preach, share, disciple others with the Word. Are we doing that? And if we're not, why not? We can't blame men for our lack of initiative because they didn't call on us. It's not by their authority that we're sent out. It's by God's. Okay? So, I personally have spent a lot of years waiting for men to approve and accept and call on me, or accept the authority that I already had to preach and teach the Word. And do you know what that time was to me? It was wasted time. Time that I could have been doing those things, but didn't, because I was waiting for men to approve. So don't do that. If God calls you to make a way for him, to make Jesus known, he does. He is calling you to do that if you're a Christian. Do so. You do so with whatever gifts you've been given. No one has to approve. No one has to accept you. No one has to put you under their umbrella. You really can be a voice calling in the desert, make straight the way of the Lord. And when they ask you who you are and what authority you have, you just tell them you're the guy who was sent to make Jesus known. Or the girl, right? Right? Yeah. Because you are. You are. And there is something to be said for accountability, and we all need to have some sort of accountability structure. I mean, we shouldn't just be out there doing and saying whatever without any protection of other Christians and accountability. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you do not have to wait for someone else to approve of whatever it is that God has called you to do and equipped you to do. Because if you do that, you might end up never doing it. Because, that's just how it is in religious structures sometimes. Hopefully that's not how it is where you are, but I'm just pointing at John the Baptist here, and hopefully I did that faithfully, and I hope it's helpful, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for listening.